This is the Red Hulk, and here's a 3D printed model which I have already put a primer layer on top of, and I'm gonna paint him in this video. By the way, my name is your dad, and this is Groundeffected. Let's get straight into painting, because who has the time for faffing? The primer is one of the most important layers. This is the layer that your subsequent paint layers will be sticking to. So if you mess this layer up, you might as well throw the whole model in the bin. That's not completely true, however. You can put it in some alcohol, clean it up again, and start all over again if you really have to. A toothbrush helps with this. Wait, what? You mean you can restart if you make a mess up? Yes, I mean exactly that. So if you ruin anything with the paint, you can literally start again. Now, as you may know, I have a lot of paints on my shelf. Probably way too many than is absolutely necessary. But that's not a problem, because I need to now start picking colors that I'm going to paint this Hulk man from. And as he is not green, I'm going to be needing to pick some red colors. And I think, I'm going to be totally honest, we should start from blue. And I think I have just the right one for it right here. But before I go and make a mistake like painting the model before I paint the base again and have nowhere to put my model, I think I should probably start with the model's base, and I'm going to have to take everything apart so that I can get to that point. Well, now that I have all the parts out on the table, it's going to make this a lot easier for me to actually paint, and it's a good time for me to probably take note of the actual colors of the project that we have ahead. Now, one slight anomaly is that you may notice that I have sprayed this with the color of silver, which is not black. And that is because there is a Captain America shield wedged into one of the rocks here, and that's going to need to have the silver in certain parts of it. But why did I not paint the Thor's hammer in silver? You will have to wait until the end of the or middle of the video to find out, because I'm not actually going to paint those yet, and I don't really know when. So just hang around, you might find out at some point. Before I start the super simple dry brushing of this particular base, I want to add a little bit of variation, and that's going to come in the form of adding this lightish, reddish, browny, orangey color into some areas, just to create variation and make it not look uniform and too boring. So as you can see, this changed the way the base looks. We're not starting from a completely black thing, but if you look, one side is darker and the other side is lighter. So it just creates a little bit of variety, and it makes it not as boring. Also, I didn't want just black underneath. The base is like this whitish, concretey kind of base. I want to add a little bit more flavor into it, and I think this is going to be the way to do it. Now I can take this natural gray and my wife's makeup brush and do a little bit. I'm going to be totally honest, just by adding that undercoat and now one single layer of dry brushing, that's a pretty good looking base already. I'm not going to lie, that is not hard to do that, so maybe you should try. But now, I want to add some of this dust color. And this color is from Amor by Mig. It's a little bit more thin than the Vallejo one, so this means it's a little bit runnier, making it maybe not the best ideal thing for dry brushing, but I don't care. It's a little bit lighter, and it's not white, so that's important. Okay, so this layer is completely done. It was just to add a small little additional layer to the lightness of the edges. Now I can use something like deck tan to bring out a little bit more of the edges in specific places. Now the front of the base is over here and the back is here. It's kind of a weird one because he's a massive model, so he kind of stands forward like that. So I want to try and focus most of the whiter or lighter edges towards the front, and then we'll come back and add some washes to complete this base and be done with it. Oh no, wait, that was a lie, because there's still rebar for someone to complain about the color that I painted. So the next step now is going to be to add some of this Drakenhof Nightshade. This is a wash from Citadel, and basically all this is a tint to go over areas. And now I'm not going to spray the whole thing because that's going to ruin some of the colors that I made. I want to be spraying this into sort of the crevasses and the cracks. This is going to make those crevasses look a little bit deeper. Now that the silver is dry, I can use this trusty panel line accent color from Tamir to make them not look so shiny. And with the completion of the base, which is now complete, I can tell you about the sponsor of this week's video, Tanuki Figures. Tanuki Figures are makers of 3D STL files, which you pay monthly to join their Patreon, and you will get them every single month. For example, like this man over here. And what you actually get for your $13 a month is 3 premium full-size figures, 3 busts, 1 chibi, and 1 extra, as well as all those exclusive accesses to just many cool things. Make sure to check out the Tanuki figures in the link down below if you want models just like these and you want to be able to 3D print them yourselves. Also, just a quick little new fresh one, if you want to have one of these printed and you do not have the model, I have permission from Tanuki to be able to print them as well. So if you're interested in that, look in the description for a way to contact me and get in contact to get your own 3D printed model so you can paint it for yourself. But for those of you with the printer, just click the subscribe, join button right now, or go in the description down below. Okay, we're at the part of the video where I get to tell you why I primed this in silver and I primed this in black. But before we do that, I need to go and get some masking tape. This piece painted silver with the little star silver is going to be way easier to have it painted like this, mask it off and paint everything else. And this, because we want the text to be black, is going to be better to dry brush this, and I will show you in the next couple of videos. So now you can see the difference between when it is dry brushed on versus if it's been sprayed on. This is a cleaner, crisper look. This is the metal that we want for a Captain America shield. It even leaves fingerprints. Whereas this is what we want for a Thor's hammer kind of thing, as you can clearly see. Now that we got that out the way, before I do any masking, I'm going to finish off this hammer because it's not much left to do but paint this leather brown for the leather parts. Okay, time for masking, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, this is not an easy thing, but if you persevere, this is all about patience, you might be able to get there in the end. I can tell you one of the best tricks in the world is to just put a new blade in. I know this one's really terrible, but even if your blade looks like it's good enough, it's not good enough to cut the mask. Never. It's never good enough unless it's brand new. Trust me. Now, as you saw, I put on a bunch of layers. I'm going to do the blue first, then we're going to have to take that off and over mask over the top of that, so this may take a little bit of a while, but let's just do it. Now that the blue is sprayed on, what we need to do is take off all this masking that we did in the secondary layers. Be careful not to ruin the layers that we put down before, because obviously we need to keep those and preserve them. Now we've got to let this dry. As soon as it's dry, I can mask that off and then paint the red. I had a sneaky feeling this was gonna happen, and realistically this contrast paint just won't stick over the top of this chrome paint, and it started pulling it up, so I did the best thing and ripped it all off, cleaned it up as best as I possibly could, because I'm gonna need to make a new plan. Okay, new plan. I don't have time to wait for that to dry, so I'm gonna do this the cheaty way, and the middle is not going to be metallic, or maybe it will, I don't know. But I'm gonna spray the reds first, and I'll just frickin' hand paint that blue on. Now I'm just going to take a red leather brown kind of color and paint the straps on the back of this shield, and when I'm done with that, I'm going to add a nice little wash to the inside areas so that those circles are a little bit predominant, or more predominant, I think is the correct word. And then I'm going to take some silver with the most damaged brush that I do currently own, and I'm going to just scratch the living crap out of this shield, because it needs to be damaged, otherwise what's the point in it being broken and shoved into the ground, of course. Oh, and once that is all dry, I'm going to take this really cheap spray lacquer and I'm going to do 2 or 3 coats, allowing to dry in between. Now we're done with the base and all the parts that need to go on the base. It's time to start getting their color on that big boy. And I think also it's time to start figuring out where I'm going to hang these things, because they're quite large and very difficult to hang in places. Hanging conundrum aside, I'm going to start this out with a white. This is going to be in the zenithal, and I'm probably going to spray a blue ink into the shadows. But let's just do it. Let's stop talking about it. I just want to quickly mention, with a model like this where the arms are all part of the same thing, it's always best to do at least your zenithal together as one. That way you can make sure you get your lighting and everything correct. Just a thing. actually paying attention to that little montage that I had played you, you would have noticed that I got the bass tones down on the red guy, and I am now working on the pants of the red guy, and I'm using deck tan. For those that are playing the deck tan game, it is now time for you to take a drink of the paint water. But what you may not have noticed, and I think you should notice it, is that there are tiny little rips in the skin, and those needed to be painted with deck tan too, because we need to set them up to be painted with the same red that he used as the highlights on the Hulk. And you could be fancy and give some shades to this, but the reality is you don't even need to do that. Just painting them red would be enough to trick your mind into seeing the tears in the pants. That is all I have to say about that. Oh, and also, don't forget to give your Red Hulk the best goth manicure you can possibly give him. It's day 2. Don't know why I'm whispering, but it's the morning of day 2. Welcome back to morning of days. And like a good YouTuber, I put the model together last night so I could take some photos and post them up in my own Patreon for all my patrons to be able to see what was going on. So now, because I was a good YouTuber, I have to take it apart again. But luckily, taking it apart pretty much just means taking off this top piece because everything else is done down below. As with the legs, I added some of that red Carabao Crimson shade into the shadows, but what I'm doing, if you notice very carefully, is that I'm not just spraying this like a crazy person. I'm carefully following the contours of the muscles. You don't really have to know anatomy too much, but the lines are there for you. Just follow the lines that are in the body. If it oversprays a little bit, it doesn't really matter too much because these colors aren't too far apart. Don't forget that even though you manicured his feet, you've got to give his freaking fingers that goth painting, otherwise it's going to look weird. I also took some of that Carabao Crimson and I painted that into the crevasses on his hands just to make those hands crevasses look like they are a little bit deeper. I don't know if that actually worked, and I actually hate how that turned out, but let's not talk about it. I also painted his hair black, and while I was painting with that black, I just took the liberty to paint that lovely moustache across his upper lip. Speaking of upper lips, I needed to add some color onto the inside of the mouth and around the gum near the top and bottom lip. This is going to set up for later on. Don't forget, he still has lips, so I feel like if I use this Magos purple, it might make them look like lips. I don't think it did, but maybe it does. Who cares? Let's move on to teeth. Teeth are the worst things in the world because they're individual, and if you make a mistake, you gotta go back and paint it again, my friend. The best trick I can ever give you with painting teeth is to leave the tiniest of little gaps. There has to be a tiny little gap, and this really sells the effect. Once they are dry, and only when they are fully dry, take some very glossy, shiny varnish and paint that over the inside of the mouth, all over the mouth, tongue, teeth, and everything. And then for his eyes, because they are nice, glowing, nuclear, whatever they are, I painted them with deck tan. That's just to make sure that they were white enough for me to put a fluorescent yellow over the top. And once I had done that fluorescent yellow, I obviously was going to be calling this model pretty much done. As I do with every video, I truly hope that you picked something out of this video that will help you painting your 3D print or any model or anything that you're actually painting, to be totally honest. Or at least it was just something entertaining to watch for the last, I don't know how long this video was. But I do want to say at this point of the video that I want to thank the patrons for keeping the lights on, because honestly, without them, these videos could not keep happening every single week. And like I say, they happen every single week. So I want to thank the Patreons for that opportunity, as well as everyone who watches my videos. And if you don't like what you're watching, I don't know why you're still here. You should probably fuck off.